Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome. It is just always good to be together and excited about this morning. We're actually wrapping up this summer sessions. We've been in this all summer. I've been away for most of the summer sessions, and so I kind of feel like maybe I almost need to reintroduce myself. My name is Eric. I work here, and it's good to be back. And so I am excited to wrap this up this morning. I've got a little message that I'm just calling Summer Reflections, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. But as I was thinking back through the summer, it reminded me of something that happened back in June. Our middle daughter, Sophie, was in town. She was staying with us. She lives in Indiana. And so she was with us for about a week. And when she got home, was back in Indiana, a couple days, she'd been home a couple days, but she texted us, Amanda and I, and she said, I can't find my retainer anywhere. I've looked everywhere. Have you guys seen it? Could you find it for me? We looked everywhere. We couldn't find it. And so then she said, well, I'm afraid that it fell into the wastebasket that was there in the guest bedroom while I was staying there. And we said, well, you know, that wastebasket was emptied and the trash has already gone out and it was picked up this morning. So the retainer's probably gone. And someone, I think it might have been Amanda, she said, well, actually, I think that wastebasket was from the guest bedroom was emptied in the kitchen, not the outside bin. And the kitchen hasn't been emptied yet. So maybe it's still in there. And I wonder if the retainer might be in the kitchen trash. And I was the only one home when all of these text messages were floating around. And so I just texted back and I said, I guess we'll never know, you know. Sorry about your luck there. I'm not digging through the trash, you know. And Sophie then was like, well, okay, but it's $150 to get a new mold of my mouth and then another $400 for a new retainer. So even still, I was like, do I really want to dig through the trash? Yeah, of course. I went into the kitchen. I started pulling out all the garbage, which is always a good time, you know. One by one, just emptying the trash, trying to find this retainer. And at the very bottom of the waste bin, there was my daughter's, well, still in its, you know, bright blue protective case. There's her retainer, now covered in like coffee grounds and other stuff. And so happy day, like we found the retainer, that was good. But here's the crazy thing about that story, and the reason why I'm sharing it kind of leading into this talk this morning. But the night before, literally the night before this happened, is when I took the trash out to the curb. And I mean, literally every time I do this, every single week, I empty the kitchen trash as I'm taking the trash out to the curb. And it doesn't matter how full the trash can is in the kitchen. I mean, half full, totally full. I don't care. I usually go and I bag it up. But that night, as I was wheeling the trash out to the curb, I stopped in the driveway and I had this thought. I thought of the kitchen trash. And I had this thought, I'm not doing it tonight. And I don't know why. Like in the moment, I felt like I was being kind of lazy. And I even had this like internal back and forth, like just go get the trash. It'll just take a minute. But I was in the driveway and thinking, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to do it tonight. I'll deal with it tomorrow. And I felt like I was being lazy, but then the next day as I was pulling that $550 retainer out of the trash, I thought to myself, I don't think I was being lazy. I think that was God whispering to me, procrastinate. It's okay this time. Just put it off. You don't have to do it all right now. You know, you'll do it tomorrow. I think most of us in situations like that, we'd be quick to write that off as a happy coincidence, right? You know, worked out well this time, right? Just a coincidence. Maybe it was, or maybe it was God. You know, either way, Sophie was super happy that I did not take out the trash when I'm supposed to. But here's the thing. I actually believe that God does speak to us in different ways at different times. You know, sometimes that is just a quiet thought, a gentle prompt just to kind of move us in a different direction, but I think he speaks to us in different ways. In fact, I wonder sometimes if God is speaking to us all the time, but we're just so busy and distracted we don't notice. And so over the past several weeks, as I mentioned a moment ago, I took some time away from the teaching here at Cypress and through the summer sessions, and just part of the reason for that was to create some space in my calendar where I could just sort of slow down and just sort of quiet my life and myself to just hear from God. And I know that kind of may sound a little bit high and lofty, that may sound a little bit mystical and things like that. Listen, I wasn't really hoping to hear or expecting to hear any kind of like audible voice from heaven, you know, enlightening me or anything like that. I've never had that experience. But really it was just some time and some space for me to get away and just seek some wisdom and some guidance and some clarity as it relates to my own faith journey and the next season of ministry here at Cypress. And so today what I want to do, as I mentioned a moment ago, I want to just take some time to share some things that have come out of the past few weeks for me. And I want to offer kind of a disclaimer with this, because if you're visiting with us for the first time, I want you to know this is going to sound and feel a little bit different than a normal message here at Cypress. But my hope is, and I really trust that God has something for all of us over these next few minutes, as I just reflect back on some things that I believe God has been teaching me. And so early in my break, I came across Psalm 86 in my daily reading. And as I read this for the first time, it wasn't the first time I read it, but first time through this reading plan, and it just captured me. It captured me almost immediately, and it captured me in a new way, because I love how David, the ancient Hebrew king, in his prayer here seems to articulate with such clarity the cry of my own heart over these past few weeks. And so I found myself just going back to this psalm and reading it again and again, and even praying it at the start of each day. But most mornings, however, I found myself drawn to the same 5 lines in Psalm 86. And I put these on the screen for us, and I want to share these with you this morning. And we'll just kind of go through this little piece by piece here. But David opens his prayer by saying this: "Hear me, Lord, and answer me, for I am poor and needy." Now something about David's words here just grips me, because at the start of his prayer, David just very honestly owns up to his own insufficiency, right? I'm poor and needy, right? And he just openly admits to God, listen, I am lacking within myself something that I need for whatever I'm facing right now in this moment. And unless I get some help from you, God, I'm not going to get through this. I can't do it. And I think this is so important, because I think it's important that David starts here, but he doesn't stop there, right? He doesn't see his insufficiency as a reason to dig in his heels or to retreat in fear and despair. But ultimately he sees his insufficiency as a catalyst to turn to God and to turn to him with more passion and more vigor. He goes on to say, "Guard my life, for I am faithful to you. Save your servant who trusts in you. You are my God. Have mercy on me, Lord, for I call to you all day long." And I love this, because David here recognizes that God, in all of his strength and sufficiency, is able to meet him in his insufficiency. He goes on, "Bring joy to your servant, Lord, for I put my trust in you." There's that theme of trust again. I put my trust in you. And then I jump to this line, verse 11, where David says, "Teach me your way, Lord, that I may rely on your faithfulness." In other words, and this is where it hit me. This is where it hit home for me. What David is ultimately saying here is, God, I will go with you. I will follow you anywhere you take me, anywhere you lead me, because I am depending completely on you. I'll go anywhere as long as you do it, because I can't do it. I'm depending on you. And as I thought back over these past few weeks, I realized that this idea of depending on God had become kind of like this recurring theme for me. And it reminded me of a quote that I encountered just kind of randomly one day. I was scrolling through social media, and this video popped up. It was a person talking. I'd never even seen this person or heard of this person before. But she said something that I've been thinking about ever since. I actually shared this in the men's group that meets on Thursday nights. We talked a little bit about there. But here's what she said. This is the quote. And she said, discipleship, which is, just following Jesus, right? Growing in our spiritual maturity as we follow Jesus. Discipleship is not measured by greater obedience. It's measured by greater dependence. Greater dependence. Now, when I read that, it just hit me. And because, for so long, I have placed so much emphasis on obedience, right? Just do the right thing. In fact, for so long, I have kind of summarized my whole discipleship experience with these 2 questions. God, what are you teaching me? And what am I supposed to do about it? I want to do the right thing. I want to obey. Now, I know, I want to say, and I want to be very careful to say this, because I still believe that obedience is very important. very, in fact, vital in our relationship with God. But before I encountered this quote, I hadn't really considered that any step of obedience is really an invitation into greater dependence, right? And that's really the point. I think a lot of times for a lot of us, we have a tendency to get in our own way in our own faith journey. Like we become the roadblock to our own spiritual progress just because of our relentless independence. I mean, we insist on depending on our own selves so often, don't we? I mean, we depend on our own logic. We depend on our own comfort, our own safety and security, our own ability. And each of those self-made safety nets just quietly draws a boundary line around how far we're willing to follow Jesus. A great example of this in the scriptures is the story of the rich young ruler. And if you remember, we've looked at this a few times. In fact, even just recently, we looked at this again. But remember, this guy runs up to Jesus, this rich young ruler. Runs up to Jesus and he wants to know, like, what's it going to take for me to really experience the fullest and the richest experience with God, life with God, you know, what he calls eternal life. How do I inherit this, Jesus, is actually his question. And Jesus looks at this guy and his response is kind of startling, I think, for a lot of us, maybe all of us. Because when he looks at this guy, he says he loves him, but then he tells him, there's still one thing you've got to do. Sell all your stuff, give it away to the poor, and then Jesus says, you can follow me. Now, when we look at this on the surface, I think it has a way of kind of making our eyes start to twitch a little bit. We like kind of freak out and we stress out because we're thinking if Jesus told this guy that he had to do this, does that mean I have to do this too? And I think also from another perspective, we look at this and we could think, well, this kind of makes Jesus sound kind of mean. Doesn't it? Like he's just giving this poor guy more hoops to jump through. And it's like, what's the big deal, Jesus? I mean, why can't this guy keep his stuff and follow you? What's the harm in that? But when we get down to the heart of what Jesus is really doing here, we begin to understand that Jesus was inviting him to step beyond his resources, to step beyond his wealth and his status. I mean, everything that he had been depending on up to that point. Because only when he would step beyond those things and leave those things behind would he be able to fully depend on God in every situation. Jesus wasn't just testing his obedience. He was calling him to greater dependence. But the rich young ruler, as we know, didn't go for it because he just couldn't let go of his independence. And it's kind of a sad story, but I think it's one that a lot of us, maybe all of us, can relate to on different levels, right? Because how many times have we sensed maybe God is leading us to something, but it just felt too far beyond us, right? It just felt too big for us. And so we hesitated. We didn't do it. You know, maybe it was something like serving in a ministry here at church. Maybe it was an opportunity to bless your neighbor in some way. Maybe it was a moment when you felt maybe God was leading you to give more generously, more sacrificially. Maybe it was an opportunity to help your daughter by digging through your trash to find her retainer, you know. Whatever it was, we considered that opportunity in front of us, maybe where we thought maybe God might be leading us here, but the math just didn't add up. You know, we couldn't get our head around it. And the more we thought about it, it was just too risky, too scary, maybe just too much. And so we didn't take that step. Because we were still hemmed in by our dependence on really everything but God. I mean, we were depending on our logic, our comfort, our abilities. We were depending on ourselves. In our journey of following Jesus, I mean, there will always be another step of greater obedience in front of us. And it will always cost us something. But it's always so that we can thrive in greater dependence in our relationship with God. And that's really what it means to be a follower of Jesus. So these past few weeks, I've been asking myself, how is God teaching me to depend more on him? And as I thought about this, there were three things that I decided to share with you this morning. Three things. Two of them are kind of personal, kind of on a personal note, just in my own walk with Jesus, my own faith journey. The third one I think is a little bit more specific or more applicable to us as a church and where we're going as a church. But first thing that I really believe he's been teaching me is to depend on him for rest. Depend on him for rest. There's a beautiful moment with Jesus that Mark wrote down for us. It happens at the end of a long day for Jesus and with his apprentices. They've been traveling all over the place. They've been serving, I don't know, maybe even thousands of people and teaching and all of these things. They were exhausted. And so at the end of this day, Jesus says to his apprentices in Mark chapter 6, verse 31, he says, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." And as I was heading into this break, I just knew I needed that. I just needed that rest. But sometimes, for me at least, and I don't know how it is for you, but sometimes maybe one of the hardest things to do is to let go of that heavy weight that you've been carrying. Maybe you've had that experience. It's just hard sometimes to allow yourself to relax and truly rest. And I feel like that first week of vacation in Indiana was sort of like a week of detox for my soul in a lot of ways. Almost like a discipline of just like loosening my grip on stuff. You know, I found myself, like, man, just put the emails down, put the text messages down. I would find myself in quiet moments like obsessing over the next teaching series and what that's going to be, or this strategic plan or this project or whatever it was. And it's like, man, just relax. The work will be there when you get back. It took me the better part of that first week to just unwind and settle in. So that by the time we got to our camp up in Michigan for the second week of vacation, I finally was able to relax and find a little bit of rest. And it was so good. I have to tell you, it was so good. It was so refreshing. I think in a lot of ways it was just what our family needed until the drive home. And then we needed another week of rest just to recover from the drive home. We all agree we're in no hurry to do that drive again anytime soon. It's brutal. But something that I think God has been teaching and I think reteaching me is that my ability to rest in him is in direct proportion to my willingness to trust him. So these past few weeks have been an exercise in depending on God for that kind of rest. Second thing here, he's been teaching me to depend on him for my care. For care. One of the ways that I've discovered that God cares for us is through relationships. Relationships like we have here with one another. And I remember, I was thinking about this because I remember coming back from our break last summer, so a year ago. And as we came back, I remember just having this deep longing for community, deeper community. And then as I was sitting with this just a few weeks ago and reflecting on my time away this summer, I realized that God has been providing that for Amanda and I and continues to do that. Just surrounding us with people that we love, people that we've known for years, people that we're still getting to know and building friendships with and building community with, and it's been awesome. I mean, one of the things that we love about this camp that we go to up in Michigan isn't just the location, but it's really the people that we get to spend that week with. And this year up at camp, we got to share our cabin with our grandson, Miles, which was awesome, right? Bree and Spencer were also there. And Sophie was there. And actually, Amanda's dad was with us for the first time, and he stayed in our cabin as well. But we love that, right? We love that time with family. There were other family and friends that were there with us as well. And then coming home from our vacation, getting back to Florida, and almost immediately within that first week back, meeting up with our small group here at Cypress, and just getting around a table and sharing a meal and just laughing together and just getting caught up in each other's lives. And then even outside of Cypress, as recently as 2 weeks ago, we've made some just incredible connections with people in our community who share our faith and share our values, and we're forming relationships with these people, and it's just been awesome. And we're experiencing, I think, in just a fresh way, this kind of community and this depth of relationship and the time that we have with these people, it's so good for our souls. And we need that. All of us need those people in our lives. people with shared values, people with shared beliefs, people that we can circle up with on a regular basis and just ask each other. So what does it look like in this season of our lives to follow Jesus? What does it look like in this season as we face challenges in our life and challenges in our love and with our loss and whatever life is throwing at us in this season? What does it look like to follow Jesus now? What does it look like to raise our kids to become people who love God and are growing in their own faith journeys? I love what I heard Andy Stanley say recently. In fact, he said this in a message at his church last weekend. I love it. I think it's so true. But here's what he said. He said, "You are far more likely to follow through and make it through when you have a community of faith surrounding you." I know we have our dinner groups, as Richard was talking about earlier, coming up later this month. And then next month, we're kicking off a whole new season of small groups, hopefully launching some new small groups, getting more of our community connected in small groups. And this is why. This is why, because God so often provides the care that our souls need through deep life-on-life relationships. God's been teaching me this again, and I'm depending on him for that in our own lives. Last thing I think he's been teaching me here, to depend on him for direction. And there's a lot that I could talk about here, several things that I've jotted down that have just come to mind for me and for our church, where I sense that God is leading us. And there's going to be a lot on the agenda as our elders meet next week to get caught up on these things. But as I zeroed in on just one thing to share with you this morning, I realized that I've just felt this burden for our next gen here at Cypress, specifically our teens. And I want to pause here and just take a moment, because I am so deeply grateful and appreciative for Tyler and Bethany Daniels and Mark and Sarah Coghill, who've stepped up and been serving our teens across the street through this interim phase that we're in right now. And they've done a fantastic job, and I know they've got so much on their plate. So can we just appreciate the Daniels and the Coghills? So grateful for that. But I think we all recognize that we've just got a real challenge in this area of youth ministry. And as we've been looking at this, just to kind of let you in on a little bit of what we're seeing and what we're thinking about, but we look at our records just within our database, we already have close to 40 teens who are part of Cypress. Already within our families, 40 teens. And roughly half of them have never engaged in our youth ministry. And I don't know all the reasons for that. I know there's a variety of reasons for that, but all I'm saying is that I want to see all of our teens engaging in our youth program. That's my heart. And so I'm looking at this and I'm just realizing, and one of the things I've come out of this break with is just a deeper conviction that we need an updated strategy to get our teens connected and helping them grow in their faith journeys. We need passionate and dedicated parents and young adults and grandparents and retirees who are willing to just invest in the lives of our young people. We need some life and some energy stirring in our teens' ministry, something that they can belong to and something they can believe in. And so about 6 weeks ago, I started working with our staff to just come up with some things outside of Sunday mornings to help get our kids more connected, which is why, as you heard earlier, we went to Epcot Thursday night. We had 7 teens who were part of that group, 2 adults, myself and Leah, went with them. And, you know, Epcot's always fun, but really what I thought was so cool about that event was watching these 7 teens, ranging in age from 7th grade to 12th grade, and all of them connecting and grouping up throughout the night, writing things together, laughing together, talking about stuff on the van ride there and on the van ride home, just connecting with each other. I mean, those were 7 teens that probably didn't know each other very well before Thursday, and now they know each other just a little bit better. And we can build on that. Like, that's just the beginning, and I'm so excited about that, because here's the thing. Your kids, my daughter Ellie, who's going to be a freshman at PHU starting tomorrow, your grandkids, and mine too, for that matter. I mean, let's get Miles down here. You know, I've been praying for that. Let's get that kid down here. And his mom and dad can come too if they need to, but our kids need a community where they can connect in meaningful relationships with other kids their age and with caring adult leaders who are going to pour into them, and most importantly, where they can connect with Jesus and grow in their faith. The next gen of Cypress, they need that, and we need to provide that for them. And I just have to tell you, as we think about the challenges in front of us, this feels big. It seems in some ways beyond us. So we're depending on God for his direction and for his provision, because we're committed to making a greater impact in our community. So you've heard me talk about this already a few times this morning, but part of our time away this year and for the past several summers has included a week at a family camp up in Michigan called Gitchagumi Bible Camp, which is a great name for a Bible camp, right? Gitchagumi Bible Camp. It's right on the shore of Lake Superior. And so this has become kind of like a family tradition for us, going up to camp there every summer. And it's really become just like a very special time and place for us. And this year, in fact, was our 10th anniversary of our very first time going up to Gitchagumi, taking our family up there. So, of course, in light of that milestone, I get all sentimental and I start thinking back over the 10 years and just what our family has looked like and what's happened in the life of our family over those 10 years. I found this picture. I dug this up last week. This is actually at camp, which you can't see much of it, but that's the camp. And this is our family. This was actually 2016, so it wasn't even our first year. It was actually our second year. But that just gives you some idea of how much our family has changed over the years, that we've been going to camp. Believe it or not, at one time I did have mostly dark hair, which you can sort of see there. But I think back to that very first year at camp, and I realized it was just our family, just the six of us in a group full of people that we had never met before. And we loved it. Somehow we still loved it. And so we started talking about going back. And we got home, we started talking to our family and friends, and when it came time to register for the next year of camp, my parents and also my sister Ashley and her family decided to go back with us that second year. And then the year after that, we did the same thing. We were talking to family and friends, and more of our family and more of our friends decided to go back with us the next year. And then year after year, we kind of saw this repeating where more of our family and friends wanted to come back. Some of their family and friends wanted to come back. And we just saw this increasing and expanding. Like we watched each year, the campfire circle just get wider and wider. In fact, one year, our group had grown to about 60 people at camp that year. And which is pretty cool. I mean, I think that was almost half or maybe more of the camp that year was our group. And so I think back on that, I think, man, how cool is that it started with 6 of us, and over the years, it multiplied into the group that we were able to spend the week with just a few weeks ago. And I can't help but think, this is what it looks like to bring everyone closer to God. This is what it looks like. I mean, when we've truly experienced the love of God and this new and abundant life that we have in Jesus, we won't keep it to ourselves. Pretty soon, the people around us, they'll want to come along with us. And the people around them will want to come along with them. And it just keeps expanding like this ripple effect from there, extending exponentially. And here's the point. Here's what I'm driving at. This mission that we talk about, this mission that we've already heard this morning, that's on the wall out there in the lobby, this isn't just the church's mission. But as followers of Jesus, this is our personal mission to bring everyone closer to God. Because followers of Jesus help others follow Jesus, who help others follow Jesus. And it just keeps going. So when I think about the challenges and opportunities in front of us as a church, there's so much that we're depending on God to do in the life of Cypress. I mean, I think about seeing our kids' classrooms just overflowing with new families that we're reaching in our community. I think about more and more of our teens connecting and finding community here, and also finding a love for God that just burns hotter and brighter. Think about seeing a move of God's Spirit in each and every heart, just drawing us into deeper faith. I think about bringing more and more of our neighbors closer to God through our love and compassion. These are the things that I'm praying for. These are the things that I'm depending on God to do, and I believe he will. But not without you and me and all of us partnering in the mission of Jesus together. So, all in all, it was a good break. And I really believe that God has been speaking, and I've been learning a lot, and now I'm ready to dive into this next season with greater dependence on him. And I hope you're ready to join me. Would you bow your heads? Heavenly Father, we will go wherever you lead us, anywhere and everywhere, God, because we are depending on you. Help us, give us the courage, and Lord, where we recognize we can't, we know that you can. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Thank you, Cypress. We'll see you next week.